Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Moeller, and today I'm going to read you an excerpt from my new urban fantasy novel, CLOAK of Worlds. Chapter 1, I'll See You in Court. The latest trouble all began on the day I went to court. Like an actual court with a judge and everything, not the High Queen's court. Though the last time I went to the High Queen's court on the Sky Throne, I ended up starting a civil war between the elven nobles. Granted, that civil war would have happened with or without me, but I was the convenient excuse. Funny how you can look back at a bad experience and realize how it could have turned out so much worse. Anyway, I'm rambling again. On the morning of January 15th, Conquest Year 320, I went to the courtroom. Specifically, the courtroom of the municipal building of Gate City. I was the marshal of the Great Gate, which meant that I had absolute authority over the gate complex in a county-sized chunk of southeastern Wisconsin. Like, I could make life and death decisions over anyone in that territory without being answerable to anyone but the High Queen. That was an uncomfortable feeling, and I couldn't make all those decisions myself anyway, so I had delegated a lot of authority in the years since Tarlia had appointed me as marshal. Competent people ran the various departments of Fort Casey and the Army of the Great Gate. Because so many people worked at the gate complex, a small city had sprung up to give them somewhere to live and cut down on commuting traffic. 5,000 people now lived in Gate City, and it had a city council, a mayor, and an elected sheriff. They mostly ran the place and sent me weekly reports, leaving me free for things like dealing with orcish and goblin raids from the Shadowlands, or overseeing the training and preparation of the men of the Army of the Great Gate. Or worrying just what Singularity's next move would be now that Foundry had been destroyed, and their plan to kill all the elven nobles with nerve gas had failed. So I had delegated a lot of stuff, but I was still in charge. So the really hard decisions or serious problems got kicked up to me. One of them was the right of appeal. The right went back 3 centuries to the first years after the conquest, when the High Queen and the elven nobles had been trying to establish their authority over the humans they had conquered. According to my husband, human justice systems had ranged from barbarous to cumbersome and mediocre throughout our history. Considering the nobles on Calvarian had been so bad that the commoner elves decided with the Archons at first, at least in the Archons started sending people to labor camps, the elves weren't that different from us. But the elves did have one advantage that human legal systems didn't: magic. The elves who knew how to cast the Mind Touch spell could use it to look into someone's thoughts. I'm sure you can see how this would be useful in a court case. A defendant or witness could invoke their right to appeal to their local elven noble, who would then either come himself or send an appropriate representative to cast the Mind Touch spell. The noble would announce his findings to the judge or the jury. If you enjoy the various legal drama shows that Russell watched occasionally and that the Marnies loved, you'd think that this happened every other court case. Like at the climax of the episode, usually right after the commercial break, the heroic prosecutor convinces the falsely accused defendant to use her right of appeal. The elven noble strides dramatically into the courtroom, casts the Mind Touch spell, and discovers the truth. The real villain breaks down ranting in the courtroom and gets arrested, and everyone lives happily ever after. Man, I hate TV. Here in real life, the right of appeal doesn't get used all that often. By the time a lot of cases go to trial, the evidence is cut and dried. For that matter, having someone else enter your mind, as I know firsthand, is a very unpleasant sensation. It's a little like going to the doctor and having your private bits examined. Imagine someone telling you to bend over and spread your legs, but it's happening with your thoughts. That's what the Mind Touch spell can feel like. Still, if someone is desperate enough in a court case, they will use their right of appeal. And here's a fun fact about being the Marshal of the Great Gate. Since I was both the highest authority of Gate City and a powerful wizard, anytime someone exercised their right of appeal, it went to me. So that was how I found myself sitting in the back seat of one of the black SUVs owned by the Army of the Great Gate, heading for the municipal building in the heart of Gate City. So that is a short excerpt from CLOAK of Worlds, and I hope you'll check the book out. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google Play, Apple Books, Smashwords, and my own pay-up store. And you can see links to those stores in the video description below. And if you've never heard of my CLOAK Mage series and would like to try it out, the first book in the series, Cloak of Dragons, is free and available at all ebook platforms. And here's hoping you enjoy CLOAK of Worlds.